Greetings and welcome to Unlocking the Matrix, presentation 41. Now I've been asked, following up from something I mentioned about we have 360 senses. So perhaps I do need to explain exactly what that is. Now, I can't quantify and give you a list of all 360 senses, but I can give you an idea of it perhaps. So if we look at this, it's as plain as the clock face, you could say. This is going to overlap a little bit into words. While I've been thinking about making this video, the words have unlocked a lot more. So there are going to be other videos, but I'm going to try and keep this purely to talking about the 360 senses. Now, there is always talk of this awakening spiritually, because we are mind, body and soul. Numbers come into this a lot as well. Invariably you'll find that you are the black sheep of the family, you are seen as the crazy one. You may well have night sweats, the ringing in the ears. You start seeing things and experiencing things in a completely different way. It goes through a process where you will probably question your own sanity, and you will wonder why things are happening and why other people can't see it. Well, let's look at this in the numerical sense, or the sumerical sense, shall we say. You'll find that the number 12 will come up repeatedly. It's in the 12 hours of day, 12 hours a night, 12 disciples, 12 nights of the round table, 12 entry points in the brain, 12 salts in the human body, and so on. Now, these numbers all have meaning, which I'm sure you can. These are fascinating studies in their own right anyway, but as I've said before, don't go too deep, because the devil is always in the detail. Stand back and see the overall pattern to these things. There are plenty of videos out there that do explain things like gemantras and the numeric values of words and so on. But one thing that is very apparent is with the number 12, it is not an even 6-6 split, it is a 5-7 split. This is why you have 5 senses in the body, but 7 what they call chakras, energy centers, and you'll notice that they match the rainbow colors. But there are actually 360 different colors as well. But there's a fine line when you describe something, and it's subjective. Do you describe something as greenish blue or bluish green? At what stage does something become the colour green as opposed to the colour blue, for example? Now, while we're talking on those two specific colours, to do with the chakras, green is associated with the heart. Blue is associated with the communication. Now, I can talk to you about this from personal experience as much as anything else. Anyway, we'll go back to the numbers first of all. So you have this 5-7 split of 12. The other number that is important is 60. This goes back to the Sumerian numbering system of what we call time. If you think about it, you have 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to 1 hour. Then you have 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night. Remember, there's always duality, so you've also got the number 2 coming into this a lot. I'm going to hold off on some of this because it almost becomes a separate topic in its own right, just talking about the words. But try this for a little experiment. Draw a circle with a compass, so it's a perfect circle. Now put in all 360 degrees, and then start drawing lines from that center point to all 360 degrees. Now, it doesn't matter what material you use, but I'm going to assume that you are going to be doing this on white paper and using a black pen. what will become apparent almost straight away as you start putting in these lines, the center, that center point will change color from the color of whatever the paper is to the contrasting color of the writing implement. So if you're using white paper, it will become a black mass spreading out. But we need to go beyond this. And this is where the idea of seeing things from others' point of view comes in, because those 360 degrees are points. So now if you take from any one of those 360 points and you draw lines to all the other 359 points, before long you are going to have a circle that has completely changed colour. Now interestingly, white, for example, the W is actually two V's, so it's like two pyramids or two triangles, which leaves height, because you are ascending, you are going to new heights. But remember its duality, so black, which is the sum of all colours, white being the absence of colours, it's black. It's black is darkness, so there's a lack of sight, as it were. But what is also must be remembered, there is black in this 3D reality, but there is also talk of a black sun and a black light, which seems almost impossible in this three-dimensional realm. But black light is not how we perceive darkness in this reality at all. You can see perfectly clearly in it. It is the sum of every other colour, and by extension it is the sum of all senses. Now these 360 senses, we work on 5 senses and 7 chakras. So the ultimate number here is 13. They say unlucky for some. Well, it's SUM, the sum of things. Now look at what the evil side is connected with. It's all to do with figures and sums and numerology. Darkness is always a twist or a double twist on the light. Hence also I think there's a reference there to the double helix as well, because it's a series of twists. It's the same pattern with the sun going between the two tropics. It will start in Capricorn, where there is less light, and it will start to rise. It will cross the equator line and it hits the Tropic of Cancer, and then it starts to descend, and you'll see exactly the same pattern on a heart monitor or any other of these monitors. You've got your timeline, and you've also got your up and down, your vertical as well with that. See, this is complicated to try and explain in a very concise and easy way, because it's so difficult to try and explain this with these limited words that we've got. I mean, a classic example is the word love. It is cheapened and overused. You can give a love emoji to a post on Facebook, but that can mean something totally different from you love sports cars, for example, or you love your partner. The word is so inadequate, to be totally honest. But anyway, you've got your 5 senses, you've got your 7 energy centers. So there's your 12 in one. It goes way beyond this, but I'm trying to keep this as concise and as easy to explain as I possibly can. I have made some tiny little notes. It's that horrible time of year. It's now 10 to 7 and we're losing the light. So we'll speed this up a bit. So also you'll notice the symbol of Earth is a circle with a cross in it. So if you think about that cross within the circle, well, where are the 4 corners of Earth, for example? It's those 4 90-degree angles. In numerology and in geometry, it is always the sum of 9. So 360, the 3 and the 6, because you discount the zeros because they are nothing. 3 and 6 makes 9. If you were to halve that, 180, 1 and 8 makes 9, and so on. Repeat pattern. This 3D reality is subject to this number 9, between 1 and 9 all the time in everything. It's the cycle of life and birth and decay. And it goes through the process exactly the same as nature does. I mean, look at what a tree does. It grows towards the light. It will discard its leaves. It will leave them for insects and things to have as shelter. It will break down and become compost and start the cycle all over again. It's the same with fire. There's another brilliant example. I mean, controlled burning has been used and very well understood by ancient tribes of how you can use it, and it produces nutrients to encourage things to grow. You'll notice also with this symbol of this cross within a circle, it's also the horrible twist on this is the Bayer pharmaceutical industry. They've used that, the Y being a reference to the Y chromosome, the BA for Baal, and the Ray or Ray, RE in reverse, the two gods again. Remember that it's always duality, and you also need to look for the silent third player, because this is a repeat pattern with everything. It will always play good cop, bad cop with everything. So you have things like Extinction Rebellion, for example, which is, it is real concerns, but it is misleading you away from other things. It's exactly the same way as all religions work. They all have an element of truth in all of them, but then it is twisted and used as divide and conquer, and it is the same repeat pattern with everything, whether it be politics, environmental issues, you name it. It's all getting us to pick one side or the other, because then we empower it. See, you are far more than this flesh and blood, as I've said before. You are mind and soul as well. And this going back to these senses, now heart is an anagram of earth. Now you always want to get to the heart of the matter. The easiest way I can explain this, the real sight is not with these eyes, it is with the third eye. And it is sight that is connected to the heart, because when you are benevolent, be no violence, as opposed to malevolent, male of violence, you are empowered to help other people. This is what this is all about. Even this archetypal Christ figure in the Bible, if you look at what that is saying from that point of view, it's not actually evil at all. It has been hijacked. And it's a repeat story that goes right back to Osiris and probably beyond that, because as I have shown on previous videos, and many other people have showed it, there are so many things that we can question, and we can't even be sure of what our true history is. I would rather go along with her story than his story. It's just look at the difference between men and women, for example. I mean, generally males are aggressive. It's all about ego, and they can be very fragile as well. And then you look at from the point of view of the divine feminine, how that is very caring and very loving, the mothering instinct. And it's also the representation of the red and the blue. See colours again. The red, obviously, in terms of chakra, is to do with the reproduction. It's right at the base level, and look at the pornography industry as a prime example of how that has been twisted from something that is supposed to be sacred. Now, the blue is all about the communication. It's associated with the throat as well. Again, so many ways I can explain this, and this is actually turning out to be a really difficult video to try and keep concise. But I think that gives you the general idea of an overall picture of this. But what I will say is, and I'm talking now from personal experience, and I'm sure a lot of you, and well, I know a lot of you have experienced this as well. Your interaction with nature, most likely it's going to be with animals, birds and insects. You may find that you're walking along a street and somebody you've never seen before, they're walking their dog, and the dog may suddenly notice you because they work on a different set of senses. Cats are as well. Dogs are very much the difference between a dog and a wolf. If you look at a wolf's eyes, they're very slitted. They have fear. A dog never really develops from being a puppy, and it is unconditional love with a dog because the eyes are round and they are open. The cat, on the other hand, is sovereign to itself and it will only do things when it wants to. You know what cats are like. But they are more sort of wisdom. Look at how they are held so sacred in ancient Egypt, for example. I had a wonderful experience yesterday. I was sitting outside and this grasshopper came and just sat on my shirt. So I just sat there and I thought, oh, well, hello. Nice for it to come and say hello. It stayed there for, I don't know, maybe 3-4 minutes and then it hopped off again, went somewhere else. And I notice it with nature in the garden as well. It's almost the way, this is really difficult to explain. There is a communication level going on I'd say almost like a magnetic or frequency level. There was a time last year, something alerted me to look out the window, and it's like, oh dear, quite a large, substantial pot with a tomato plant had fallen on its side, and it was almost as if this tomato plant was screaming at me, saying, "Come and stand me up again," which I did. I don't believe in coincidences, coincide dances, if you break that word right down. Everything happens for a reason. Now, a lot of you at the moment, I find this really frustrating because I know you are going through absolute hell in your personal lives at the moment, and I wish I could wave a magic wand or had a few million spare so I could come and help get you out of the situation you're in. But these are this is the thing to remember. All that you are going through are purely experiences. If you think back to when you were a toddler, when you first start to learn to walk, you master about walking through a door frame without hitting your shoulder. You master climbing up and down stairs as you get a little bit older. And if you don't learn from that experience, you're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again. That's in the physical sense. We're now talking in the mind and the soul sense with all this, because it's the same. If you don't learn from the experiences, then they're gonna hold you back. Now, you can have something bad happen in your life, and you have a choice with what you do with that. You can stay feeling miserable and upset by it, or you can let it go and say, okay, what have I learned from that? What is that experience teaching me? From a personal point of view, I can talk about this from anxiety, what is called PTSD, and how mentally you get this fear that you cannot go outside the front door, for example. It's a horrible experience to go through, but it is empowering. Once you come out the other side of it, when you encounter other people, and you will encounter other people, they are almost sent to you. You will bump into people and you will instantly click with them because we are basically magnets as well. And you'll be in a position to help them from what you've been through, no matter how horrific the experience. And you can actually help pull them back up and help them out of their situation. That is a wonderful experience to go through. It is a totally different, shall we say, reward. Nothing to do with money. That is not true wealth at all. We can all just keep printing money with no meaning behind it. Anyway, I digress. As I've said many times before, there's so much in this. So think about also the words that we use. You can go into a room and there's an atmosphere. Well, you need an atmosphere because you need oxygen to breathe for the physical body, but there is another level to this, atmosphere, because you can sense the tension, for example. If there's been an argument in the room, nobody actually has to say anything, and it's like, whoa, there's an atmosphere in this room. I'm sure you've all experienced that. See, the thing to remember is not everything has a physical shape or something about it, but it's still very real. Like, you can feel pain, you can feel anger. Yes, there is a physical pain, but there is also a mental pain that does not have a physical form. That's the word I was actually looking for, physical form. But I think you get the general idea. So seeing and hearing and getting a taste for something, a feeling for something. You see how all these senses, they're just like the five are the first entry levels. From those, think of it like tree roots really. They branch off. So out of those five senses, they will develop. Because when you're going through this awakening, remember that with five senses, you are only seeing 1% of the visible light between the ultraviolet and the infrared. When you start going through this awakening, things will start opening up. And this is a term that is often used with awakening, about opening up and about letting go as well, which I've said before about you mine the mind. You get rid of all the mental clutter and keep it free, because we're not dealing with intellect. Knowledge is something totally different. Things will just come to you as and when you need them. It's the true spiritual version of what will be classed as the Google Cloud. Spiritually, you are downloading. The information will come to you. And between the mind and the heart, because don't forget the third eye is up here in your heavens. That is the entry point, and it will go down, and the true brain is actually in the heart. This is why we need to get to the heart of the matter. But at the same time, we also need to look at the root of the problem. And what have you got on the bottom of your feet? Two further souls. Now, there's no accident that these words are all the same, because we are speaking a phony, phonetic language. And are we to languish in this? We are collectively described as human. Now, there's two ways of even looking at that. We are many hues, many colours, but there's also the dark side, the who men, which I've mentioned before, because they hide behind masks, because they don't want you to see who they are. They don't want you to shine their light on them. But photographs, for example, on Facebook, when this all unlocks, you will be able to spot the demonic quite easily, because it does show in the eyes, because the eyes are the windows to the soul. So that's a little taster. I wish I could actually give you a full list of what these 360 senses are, but you've got your collective consciousness, for example, when you have the same thoughts as other people. This will be confirmed by number sequences that you'll see. You'll have all sorts of experiences. You'll have chance meetings with total strangers. That's another example of it. You'll get the ringing in the ears as well. That can be to do with 5G, if you're not open to this. But it can also be spiritual messages. It can be soul connection to another person, because I can tell you from my own personal experience, the ringing in the ears changes pitch depending on who I'm talking to. And it seems to be more the left ear, more than the right, when it is someone who resonates on the same frequency. So I think I'm going to leave that there, because I've talked for 23 minutes 44 seconds there. I mean, there's a number sequence in itself, 2344. Very interesting one in itself, because it makes the sum of 13. So I think that's a good place to leave this. There will be more videos, and I will try and expand on this, but hopefully that has given you a general idea. All I will say is, please do not be fearful of any of this, because fear is a negative energy, and it opens up a door for the dark side and the demonic. Try to just stand back from every situation and see it for what it is, their experiences, no matter how good or bad they might seem. And remember that we learn better from bad experiences than when everything goes right. So I wish you all a pleasant and wonderful day, and stay in the light, be benevolent, but also protect yourself. Do not allow others to take advantage as well. Thank you very much.